Pnawn da.
Good afternoon. I am Councillor Gwynol Ellis and I am Chair of the Education and Skills Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I wish to welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a multi-location meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and shall be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting shall continue and the recording will be made available through the Council's website upon the conclusion of the meeting. Due to changes to the political balance, membership of the committee has changed since the agenda was published. Councillor David Carr and Emily Owen are no longer members of this committee, and the councillors Anne McCaffrey and Gareth Probert are now members. I wish to remind members that translation facilities are available. If you want to make use of this facility, please select the English language option on the microphone delegates unit if you are in the council chamber, and for those attending remotely, by clicking on the audio settings tab and selecting English. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand and switch on your microphones when it becomes your turn to speak. Online, for the benefits of those who need to hear the translation at all times, anyone online participants who wish to speak should use the yellow hand function, and I shall call your name to speak, and on that point please press the push to speak button, and if you have a point of order, please use the push to speak button only. Members of the committee shall be given the opportunity to voice their opinions first before relevant cabinet members shall be invited to contribute as appropriate, and then non-committee members will be given an opportunity to speak. In order to maintain your place in the speaker queue when asking a question, please leave your microphone on until you have received a response and have asked any supplementary questions. It would be useful if members were to ask each of their questions all at once. Although we do not want to restrict debate, we wish to remind members that any questions should focus on the subject at hand and that they should avoid any repetition. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. And if remote attendees need to leave the meeting temporarily, please pop a message in the chat function. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and respectfully. That applies to members, officers, and members of the press or public in attendance. Thank you. We shall proceed to the agenda then. Beginning with number 1, apologies for absence.
No apologies, Chair.
There we are. And I've just got an apology from Councillor Anthony Bertola that he will be late arriving by some 10 minutes, please. Number 2, declarations of interest under the Code of Local Government's Conduct. I wish to remind you that you must declare the existence and nature of your declared personal interests. Can we begin with Councillor Gareth Probert?
I have sought advice from the monitoring officer, and he has advised that I don't need to declare this, but for the interest of transparency, I would like to say my wife is a primary school teacher, albeit not in this local authority.
Diolch.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jeff Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Just personal interest in item 9 as a member of SIFA. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I don't think so. There we are. Number 3, urgent matters, and none have been brought to my attention. Thank you. Number 4, minutes. The minutes of our previous meeting. We need to approve and sign them as a correct record. And they are to be found on pages 3 to 8 in your packs. May I have a proposer for the approval of the minutes, please? Councillor Austin has proposed. And Councillor Carol Beard has seconded that proposal. And can we have a show of hands, please, to show our agreement?
Diolch.
Thank you. Number 5, the minutes of the school budgets forum on pages 9 to 13. May I have a proposer and a seconder, please, to note those minutes? Councillor Anne McCaffrey has proposed and seconded by Councillor Joe Nuttall. And if we can have a show of hands to indicate our agreements, please. Thank you very much. Number 6, questions to Cabinet members, and there are none that have come to hand. And number 7, to review the forward work programmes. So number 1, the Education and Skills forward work programme for this committee, and that's on pages 14 to 17, and also to look at the combined forward work programme, which is on pages 18 to 43. And Jane Jones, the lead scrutiny officer, shall provide us with the latest information. Thank you, Jane.
Yeah. Good afternoon, members. In your packs, you'll find the Education and Skills Forward Work Programme together with the combined Forward Work Programme. There are no changes to date. However, we do have a couple of topic selection forms that we will be reviewing this week, and the Forward Work Programme will be populated accordingly. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, Jane. I've got someone who wishes to speak, Councillor Anne McCaffrey.
Just a couple of questions to Jane. There is no date for a couple of the items, Jane. One is strategic school planning and the other one is post-16. So I just wonder if you could give us an indication of when that will happen. And then there's a couple of also things I think we should have on the plan, because it's actually quite light in terms of content, really, isn't it, as a forward work plan? But year 2 ALN review, should that not be on there? And secondly, school support services, a 12-month review. I think it's 12 months as well, the new system in place. So just a couple of questions there. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. I'll try and answer some of your queries. The items without dates are still under review with the strategic school planning group. So I'm hopeful, I'm being advised here by the head of service, we will have dates in due course for those items. And forgive me, Councillor Anne, what was the other item?
Was that the same for post-16? That's
Yeah,
no date?
yes,
So,
yeah,
okay.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And was
And
the
then
other one, go on.
Yeah, the other one was, we did a first year review of ALN, the new ALN system, and there's a year 2 review. So should that not be in the forward work plan? And the second addition potentially is it's 12 months, I think, since we introduced the new school support services, having taken it in-house. So is that not up for reviewing under this financial year?
Yes, I can see Dr. Lowry
Yeah,
nodding here.
we will I will liaise with education officers, Councillor Anne, and we'll look at scheduling those 2 reports, the ALN and the second one is this, as soon as we can.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jane. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much.
Cynghorydd Kay,
Councillor.
your microphone is on. Okay, you didn't want to speak. So, gair.
May I now have a proposer and a seconder for the approval of the forward work programme, please? Councillor Austin has made the proposal, seconded by Councillor Anne. And can we have a show of hands, please? There we are. Thank you very much. We shall now proceed to the first of the reports before us this evening. Number 8, which is to consider a report by the Head of Education Services on the following matter, which is Conwy's Welsh in Education Strategic Plan annual review report, which is found on pages 44 to 104. Councillor Aaron Wynne, the Cabinet Member for Education, shall introduce the report, and John Paul Jones, Senior Education Improvement Officer, shall present the report. And there shall be a video for you to watch as well. So over to you, Councillor Aaron. Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. This report shows the positive progress made by Conwy in achieving the targets of the Welsh in Education Strategic Plan. I believe there is clear development seen in all the key outcomes. We see progression in the number of learners receiving their education through the medium of Welsh. We are expanding the opportunities for using the Welsh language every day and are taking steps to strengthen the Welsh medium education workforce. I am extremely proud of the work that all the officers, childcare settings and early year settings, schools and other stakeholders have been doing to achieve these ambitions. Genuine progress is being made with a clear strategic vision under the leadership of officers in the education team. Although there has been substantial progress, it's important to continue to build upon the momentum by ensuring that the Welsh language continues to be a priority throughout all council services. I wish to note my formal thanks to all who have contributed to the success of the plan so far, and although Sian Vaughan nor Delys Wyn Jones are here with us this evening, I would like to thank both of them very much. I look forward to seeing this work continuing to develop in order to ensure the best possible opportunities for children and young people in Conwy in the future. I shan't steal John's thunder, so I shall now hand you over to him to take you through the report. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you to Councillor Aaron for his introduction, and may I also thank the education stakeholders, schools and officers for their support in putting this report together. I have been part of the collaboration in the strategic side of this. So this is split into two parts. First of all, I'm talking about the main successes and the highlights. And then we'll be looking at the next steps for next year. So outcome one is more nursery-aged children receiving their education through the medium of Welsh, and early years are succeeding in expanding that provision across all establishments, and that shall continue to develop. There are currently 32.9% of children receiving their early education through the medium of Welsh, and that is up from 29.8% last year. We have got 40 early education settings, 17 Cylchwyd Meithrin. We've got TRV in 12 areas, and we've got Cymraeg I Blant in another 7 areas. We've got Clwb Cwtch in 4 areas in Conwy, and we've got Dwylo Bach and schemes and plans elsewhere. We've got Sefydlu Symud and also the Plethu scheme in Llanelfychan. I'm going to show you a video now which shows the work that's been doing in that Cylch Meithrin in Llanelfychan to promote the Welsh language among staff and pupils. So if I can ask to change the screen for you now.
I weithio hefo grŵp chwarall yn Llanelfychan. Maen nhw wedi wreiddio'r iaith Gymraeg yn y lleoliad trwy gydol y lleoliad. A mae'n amlwg iawn bod y plant hefo dealltwriaeth da iawn o'r iaith. Dylsyn nhw fod yn falch iawn o'r hyn maen nhw wedi gyflawni.
Dyma Heddi Twt ar y ffer.
Croesi'r Bonds has been a wonderful addition to our setting.
Since dwi'n dechrau wneud Croesi'r Bonds, dwi'n mwy hyderus gyda'r plant a dwi'n siarad Cymraeg mwy. Mr. Something they're doing.
Ers i nhw cychwyn y siwrna, mae hyder, nid yn unig hyder y staff, ond dwi wedi gweld gwahaniaeth yn y plant.
They're interested, they love the ideas, and they're very keen to use the Welsh language.
Mae'n bwysig bod y playgroup yn hyrwyddo'r Gymraeg am nifer y resymau. Mae'r ysgol ar lwybr eitha cyffroes ar hyn o bryd, lle dyn ni yn y broses o newid ein categori ieithyddol, fel bod ni'n hybu'r Gymraeg a bod ni'n cynyddu faint o Gymraeg sy'n digwydd yn yr ysgol.
Mae'r bartneriaeth efo Cwlwm, a Meithrin Meithrin, a Blynyddoedd Cynnar, maen nhw'n rhoi pob cyfle i ni allu sicrhau bod y ddarpariaeth yn gywir a bod y dilyniant wedyn yn parhau mewn i'r ysgol gynradd o hynny.
Gynyddu na i feddwl am 2.50, y Llywodraeth y miliwn o siaradwyr, mae rhaid i ni edrych ymhellach yn hyn a chydweithio hefo darpariaethau eraill i rhoi y cyfle yna i'r plant ac yn sgil yr bil addysg Gymraeg ar hyn o bryd. Mae o'n rhoi dyfodol at mwy o ddewis i'r plant yna efo llwybr addysg.
Dewin! Helo! Ydych chi'n dweud helo, Dewin?
When Catrin comes in to do her regular sessions, they're full of enthusiasm, they run up to her to see what's going on and to join in. They love the activities.
Mae'r ymateb yn galonogol iawn yma. Dwi'n ymweld bob pythefnos. Dwi'n gwneud gweithgaredd fo'r plant, patrymau iaith, boed o'n clai, neu chwarae yn y dŵr, beintio, neu dwi'n modelu amser cylch. Ydy bwyd yn oer iawn, yn y tro. Mae'r plant yn dod ata i mewn grwpiau neu mewn un grŵp mawr. A wedyn mae'r staff hefyd yn dod i weld beth dwi'n neud efo'r plant. A wedyn y darged ydy bod nhw'n modelu wedyn yma pythefnos nesaf. A mae ymateb nhw wedi bod yn wych.
Da ni'n ffodus iawn efo Mudiad Meithrin. Da ni'n cydweithio efo Ganolfan Dysgu Cymraeg genedlaethol. Ac trwyddyn nhw ac yn partneriaethau Cwlwm, mi da ni'n hyrwyddo'r cyrsiau camau. A maen nhw'n gyrsiau hunan dysgu penodol ar gyfer y gweithlu blynyddoedd cynnar.
Mae'r staff yn wych. Bob aelod ohonyn nhw, maen nhw gyd wedi gwneud neu yn dilyn cwrs camau hefyd, yn ei hamser i hynna'n.
Pwy sy'n tu ôl i'r flanced felyn? I find that the children are speaking to me a lot more in Welsh, and it's helping my Welsh. I'm sure it'll help them a lot more the more that we learn from the Croesi'r Bont scheme.
Mae ymateb o'r plant wedi bod yn wych, maen nhw'n cael hwyl, maen nhw'n mwynhau neu Dewen o Doti, maen nhw'n canu can newydd, mae Catrin wedi deud i nhw, mae'n wych i'r plant.
Da iawn pawb! Dwi'n meddwl erbyn rwan bod nhw'n gallu defnyddio'r Gymraeg yn fwy naturiol pan maen nhw yn cynnal gweithgareddau hefo'r plant.
Parents have very much been on board. A lot of parents have come forward and said how much more Welsh they hear their children taking home.
Gwpan coch gyn flasu? Gyn flas, gyn da.
I would recommend it highly. The support you get, the advice you get, the resources, it's a winner-winner every way. If you're offered the opportunity, definitely take it up.
I playgroups sydd yn meddwl amdano fo, ewch i siarad efo Karen a'r staff, ewch i weld y plant, ewch i weld be maen nhw gyd i cael allan ohono felly, a swn wedi deitha chi'n sydd y gwahaniaeth wedi gwneud.
It was so much needed and it's made such a difference to the group, and I'm very glad we took the decision to join.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and could see all the hard work that's going on in the background, and we hope to roll that out to more schools in the next academic year. So that's one part of the plan. So we've got the Plesu scheme, we've got Sefydlu Symud, Croesi'r Bont, Camwrdd Gam, Early Years Project, Camau, Addewid Cymraeg, Cydwaith Cymraeg, and Cymell as well. Now, in terms of capital funding, we've got Bodalaw Cylch Meithrin, which has been completed now. We've got Cylch Meithrin Talheuan, and another in Penmaen Mawr, Cylch Llansanan, Cylch Awel y Môr, and a new project, the latest one, will be the Morfa Rhianedd, which will show beginning very soon. So when partnerships are formed across Cwlwm, our Welsh team in Conwy, and the Early Years team, the Welsh Strategic Education Planning Group, taking ownership of sites in Llais Gymraeg, language coordinators with Cwlwm, and Family Information Services. So that is outcome one for you. In terms of outcome number two, which is more Section A's children receiving their education through the medium of Welsh, we have been reviewing our immersion provision this year in all sectors in order to revisit the authorities' needs for the next reporting period. In terms of data, we've got 29.8 reception children receiving their education through the medium of Welsh, and that's up from 27.1. There are a bit fewer in year one, unfortunately, but not many. Back in February 2022, a thematic report was published by Estyn outlining immersion practices throughout Wales, and Estyn provided a recommendation to Welsh Government, local authorities and schools as to how to strengthen the provision, and this is what has driven this work that we've planned from last September onwards, including non-maintained settings and schools, which is to build upon effective practices of planning a range of activities which provide opportunities for learners to learn language and patterns of speech. Now, in terms of local authorities, intentional planning to ensure equal opportunity for all learners to early immersion and late immersion. Also, the evaluation of the immersion provision, including progress tracking of latecomers over time and strengthening and moderating the professional learning offer for all practitioners. Welsh Government expect them to develop national guidelines for early immersion and late immersion, and to commission a range of suitable resources for learners of all ages to support immersion learning, which celebrates the diversity of Wales. They also need to establish the national forum to promote the most effective immersion practices, including promotion of local arrangements to build vocabulary and speech patterns. Following this report, arrangements are in place to review all immersion provisions under these headings. So, teaching and learning, care.
Arwain a gwella.
I'm sorry, I'm unable to keep up with this because he's just reading it off the paper. If you bear with me a second.
Dyn ni wedi...
Translation struggling to keep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Ar garlam, John. Oh.
Mai, okay, fine.
Oh. Diolch, Cynghorydd Jo, am dynnu'n sylw ni at hynna. Diolch.
Thank you. I shall continue. So the upshot of the strategic plan will be to ensure that the WESP and the vision is shared comprehensively. So we wish to have a provision that is comprehensive, consistent and effective to meet the demand across the county. We wish to make the best of grants. We want high expectations by practitioners through structured immersion which follows methodology. We need this marketing scheme which promotes Welsh medium education and late immersion. And we need consistent self-evaluation progress which tracks the progress of learners over time and evolves to meet the requirements. So this year, we've put together guidelines for practitioners throughout the country which outlined early immersion methodologies and resources to implement it. We have revamped working plans of the Canolfan Iaith, and we are also revisiting the secondary ones so that the provision increases as the children make progress. We have looked at review reports from other authorities to see how they have coped with their immersion processes. We attend the national network to get the main messages from governments throughout Wales to see what the good practices are. And we've also, for instance, looked at increasing listening skills based on immersion research undertaken in Tokyo. Our practitioners attend the North Wales Immersion Network to share good practice, and we have established the Conwy Immersion Network as well. We have changed the arrangements for pre and post Canolfan Iaith to ensure that our pupils are given appropriate provision. We've also set up links with the inclusion team to strengthen the ALN elements for those children who attend the immersion provision. So there's a lot of work that's been going on in looking at our immersion provision throughout the authority. In outcome 3, we have looked at more children continuing to improve their Welsh language skills when transferring from one stage of their statutory education to another. The good news is there are 52 pupils who have been through the Canolfan Iaith Conwy process or an immersion process or another intervention at Ysgol y Creidyn and Ysgol Dyffryn Conwy. The main work that's been going on within outcome 3 is to look at the provision of category T2 schools. Those are schools that are currently growing their Welsh language provision from being 20% as it was under the old categorisation system to 50%. In the latest process. We've got 14 of those schools and we've been undertaking monitoring visits and learning journeys to see how they are developing. So back in autumn term 2025, since the action plans of those schools, or the majority did not show sufficient progress, we did develop a specific piece of work and the team has provided guidance and the vision has put together a strategic plan to increase provision from in the category T2 20% to 50% and to offer purposeful actions to increase provision against the documents we call the milestones documents for the next 5 years. The annual plans have been set into 12 areas of action for all school stakeholders. There are aims for leadership, teaching staff, auxiliary staff, learners, parents and the school community. In the spring term this year, we provided specific training to all head teachers of those schools to share all that information and to ensure that they understood the implications of the Welsh in Education Act 2025 and that they understand what they must do to move their schools along the continuum. So we continue to do the validation and to support those schools and we will do so next year. And this is a very important piece of work. Outcome 4, more learners studying for assessed qualifications in Welsh as a subject and subjects to the medium of Welsh. The most significant work we've done here this year is to work with Category 1 secondary schools, beginning to prioritise the need to develop a Welsh ethos and culture in order to develop teaching and learning as part of the development plan. We work with the Canolfan Dysgu Cymraeg on developing the workforce in order to support staff to promote speaking Welsh with pupils in English medium secondary schools. We work with 2 schools in particular since they sit within our T2 primary schools and that work shall continue in year 7. In particular, outcome 5, more opportunities for learners to use Welsh in different contexts within schools. So that's the Siarter Iaith, the Cymraeg campus. These programmes are being implemented in all schools and there are 3 schools that have just been validated this week. The English medium secondary schools and the special schools have also received funding to develop this aspect. Examples include setting up a Criw Cymraeg, Welsh signage, ensuring that the Eisteddfod is held, shows with Welsh characters and Welsh history, go to Glanllyn, staff development, Caffi Cymraeg, creating a Welsh cultural mural and the Cool Cymru week. There shall be a Siarter Iaith post being advertised in September as well to support this work and we do receive a lot of support from the Urdd, Menter Iaith and the youth services in Conwy. Outcome number 6, an increase in the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils with additional learning needs in accordance with the duties imposed by the Act. The Beth Allai Wneud resource has been updated to include more diagnostic information based on evidence, which enables Welsh medium schools to make an appropriate assessment of the basic literacy needs to base their targets upon. This is a Welsh medium literacy diagnostic tool specifically for Conwy. In terms of our provision, we've got 2 units, the LSS, Welsh Language Support, language, speech and language, that's Welsh Support there. Half the ELN team can speak Welsh. We've got 3 educational psychologists who speak Welsh. We have no specific autism resource at present, but that is under review. And of course, the GOGAR provides Welsh provision as well. Outcome number 7, to increase the number of teaching staff able to teach Welsh as a subject, in addition to teaching through the media of Welsh, we've collaborated with the Canolfan Dysgu Cymraeg, and we release staff from schools at access and basic course levels. 81 staff members from our schools have had some sort of provision, but we have been focusing in particular on English medium schools in the secondary schools and T2 schools where necessary. So there we have the successes this year, but there have been risks involved as well. The number of pupils continue to fall. The Welsh language provision in T2 schools is not consistently effective, and that requires improvement. The pace of moving schools along the language continuum is slower than had been expected. We must reconsider the development of the Welsh language provision throughout Conwy. And challenges and priorities of schools in a difficult financial context mean that the Welsh language is not always given enough attention. So how are we going to put in mitigation to that? Well, we've got a clear work stream under the authority officer to support improvements in the Welsh language provision at T2 schools. We do ensure that the authority plans for moving schools along the continuum and prioritise work streams in that respect as part of schools' strategic plans. We try to build capacity into teams to manage work streams linked to changes to school categorisations and codes. We plan intentionally based on the authority's immersion requirements, strategic planning on identifying and supporting the language development of school staff, and collaborating across education services to ensure that actions from the WESP are considered robustly in any strategic planning decisions. So, moving forward, I'll try to be brief here. The next steps for next year, outcome 1, we were to expand Dechrau'n Deg and to raise the number of Welsh settings, to move the plethysy scheme forward, collaborating with playgroups, continue with the Croesi'r Bonds, the transition with schools, to increase the number of settings that can offer a one-stop shops on school grounds, and to tie in with capital schemes such as Morfa Rhianner, and to promote collaboration with RHAG in particular. Outcome 2, to continue to support Category 2 schools, planning meetings for the milestone targets, information sharing on T2 category and Category 1 education with parents and stakeholders, to change the language medium of 1 schools by a process of consultation and the democratic process, to act on the recommendations in our review of the immersion provision, and outcome 3, to work on a programme to retain Year 6 pupils noted in Welsh medium education as they move to secondary education. We have found that we are losing a number of pupils as they move from primary to secondary, English medium secondary. So continue to collect data on that and to collaborate with agencies such as RHAG. Outcome 4, to ensure that local and national networks support secondary schools, English medium, to with the detail of core Welsh skills, to ensure that English medium secondary schools collaborate closely with their primary clusters to ensure that pupils' linguistic abilities develop sufficiently for the secondary continuum. We continue to work with the special school and the English medium schools to support a scheme for the promotion of the Welsh ethos and culture and the provisions such as the Siarter Iaith. Following that, we shall work with schools to help them so that more staff can learn Welsh. For outcome 6, ALN, the authority shall continue to develop provision in accordance with the Act. And outcome 7, the last one, to continue to offer Welsh language courses to school staff at access and basic levels within T2, secondary and special schools, and to discuss offering Welsh courses to head teachers of Category 1 schools and to collaborate specifically with Category 1 secondary schools to develop aspects of its areas of learning and experience for more learners who shall be coming up from the primary schools in T2. And so we need to tighten up our systems for tracking the progress of staff. So there's a lot of work that's going on, as you see, and everything ties together in the end to move the Welsh language provision forward in Conwy in accordance with the Act. Thank you very much.
Iawn.
There we are. Well, thank you very much, John Paul, for that report. And thank you. I think it's good translating this evening. Rodri, thank you, Rodri, for translating there and throughout the meeting. And thank you for the report and for all the work you've done. And Delyth and Sian, of course, and everyone who has contributed to this report, which is a very comprehensive one. And thanks also for sharing the video with us. It's nice for us in this committee to see the children, which reminds us that we are here for the benefit of children, young people and their families. Of course, there have been major developments in your strategic plan, and I am fortunate in my role as the Welsh language champion in the council that I am able to attend these meetings. And in the past 4 years, this meeting has developed to be a very strategic one, and there's a world of difference compared to how it was. So you are to be congratulated for that too. And you now have a plan, and it is a strategic plan, and that is pleasing to note. And there we are. Everyone is working towards the same aim, and it's nice that you include research and provide links in the report to that research work as well. So I'm sure that many of us have learned a lot here this evening. And does anyone have anything to say, please, apart from myself? We shall go first of all to Councillor Joe.
The report. Just a couple of questions. Specifically Bodallow having the extra classroom, will there be extra funding coming from that capital programme or a different funding for staff? Because obviously the extra pupils will bring in extra money, but not initially. So where will that initial money come from to fund the staff for that new classroom, please?
Dr Lowry, mynd I ateb.
Dr Lowry, you shall respond.
The capital project there will accommodate, yes, the growing numbers, and we will be working with the school to see whether there are any revisions to that staffing structure which need to take place, and then of course their allocated funding will reflect any changes to the staffing structure as we would in any other situation.
Okay, so long as they won't struggle financing staff for that in the initial first year. Thank you.
Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Joe. We shall now turn to Councillor Gareth Probert.
One of the risk implications is that there may be a shortage of teaching staff able to teach Welsh and teach through the medium of Welsh effectively. You outline plans to offer Welsh language courses to existing staff, but how will you ensure we don't lose the opportunity to recruit new teaching staff that may otherwise be excellent and high quality candidates that are currently not fluent or not confident in the Welsh language?
Diolch yn fawr I chi.
Thank you. I shall answer in Welsh. we are very fortunate that we've got a national body, which is the Canolfan Dysgu Cymraeg, the National Centre for Welsh Learning, and that provides school staff with all opportunities at whatever level, whether they are new in education at an access level or at a proficient level, to gain all skills possible to learn Welsh. And it's funded, and also several years ago now, we set up a language policy for recruitment in schools in accordance with the professional expectations of staff. They are expected, if they come to work in a school, whichever medium, that they do develop the language abilities and skills themselves through a programme of support and professional development. So that is available through the centre, and it is fully funded. So all opportunities are provided for staff to do this, and we are reliant upon the vision of the head teacher to drive this forward in accordance with the strategic plan that they will have to put together for their own schools' Welsh language developments in accordance with the Act. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just so I'm sort of clear on that, then, can the Welsh language be a potential barrier to good candidates that maybe would wish to apply for work in Wales, but perhaps feel like they would not be able to be up to scratch with their Welsh?
It depends on the context of the school, really, because we'd have three types of categories in Conwy. So you have primarily Welsh medium category 3, where 80% of the provision is done through the medium of Welsh. You have the category T schools, which will be 50%. So you'll need fully bilingual staff for both categories. In terms of category 1, there is an expectation that over time that people develop their Welsh medium skills. You do have the issue, of course, in secondaries, whereby some subject-specific subjects are difficult to recruit. So the school does have to work with what the pool it has to ensure that those learners have the development in their core subject. So, schools have to use their discretion to ensure that the provision for the clear education needs of the children are met.
Thank you very much.
That you read the Welsh Language Act, which came out last year. The Welsh language can never be a barrier. It is law in Wales that all schools have to teach a portion of the Welsh language, so it's not a barrier.
Next, I've got Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Can I commend John Paul and your team for the report? I learnt a lot from reading it. I did find it a challenge. At the end of reading it all, I had a bit of a headache because there's a hell of a lot of information in there. But it was very helpful. I want to, and I've had some correspondence with you because I've got sort of two questions, really. They're also about the issue of the shortage of teaching staff able to teach Welsh as a subject and teach through the medium of Welsh effectively. And the two things I was pursuing with you was one, there are a great deal of incentives in Wales to support schools and attempt, if you like, to influence the recruitment market to get not just young adults with the skills to train as teachers, but also then to support them in their careers in schools. And there are lots of incentives that head teachers and governors can take to, I would say compete with other schools, but to enhance their Welsh language offer because of the skills of the staff that they've got. My concern is, and I say this as a governor myself of both primary and secondary school, I'm not sure that all head teachers and governors are sort of fully over that information. And I just wonder whether there could be something done, shared with governors and heads, to say, look, these are all the things you can do to support Welsh language teaching in school and support all teachers, because I think there is still quite a lot of ignorance, and I put myself in that category. So I would find such a document specifically helpful. And I also think, don't we need to do even more? Because I know at the moment we are recruiting teachers in some schools, but the best we can often offer them is a 1-year fixed term job. And that to me is sort of undermining of what we're trying to do overall. If you can only offer them a 1-year fixed term job. So that's one of my sort of areas of question. And the other one is, shouldn't we actually have a specific costed action plan to tackle the shortage of teaching staff able to teach in Welsh as a subject and teach through the medium of Welsh? So what I'm saying is, acknowledging that that is the big issue, and I was reading the Welsh Language Commissioner's report about 4 or 5 months ago when it came out, and it seems to me that we need to be much more specific in identifying those actions. We need to cost them, and then we need to identify with Welsh Government, well, and with council taxpayers, how we fund that. And I think that's the area for me, unless you tell me I'm ignorant on it, that we haven't quite got right yet.
Diolch.
Thank you.
Obviously in this meeting. So I'm looking over there now, and I think that Claire Scanlon is going to respond.
Yeah,
Diolch, Claire.
Diolch. I think, Councillor Paul, some of the points you've made there regarding teachers of Welsh and teachers who can teach through the medium of Welsh is not just specific to that sector. Actually, we can see lots of national incentivisation for recruiting teachers regardless of the language in which they teach, but it's the retention of teachers that we're really talking about here. And I think that's beyond a Conway matter. It is a national matter, and I think there is lots of resource thrown at recruitment, whether that's around specialist subjects, whether that's around the language, but it's the retention that is the issue. And I think, you know, one of the points you made there was about a costed plan. Well, of course, we've got school teachers paying conditions. We can't deviate from that in the regard of, you know, if you're able to teach physics, or if you're able to teach physics through the medium of Welsh, the absolute sort of golden expectation that, you know, there isn't a way to do that, to deviate or to work outside those set paying conditions. So I do think sort of nationally there is discussion and lobbying around how do we keep teachers, both, as I've said, in Welsh medium schools, to be able to teach Welsh and to be able to teach lots of specialist subjects. So I think, you know, it's a problem that goes beyond just this kind of area, really. And in terms of that incentivisation, you know, what I can say is, by and large, our schools, particularly our Welsh medium and T2 bilingual schools, are engaging with those incentives as much as they can. So we've got some really good examples of the Open University courses where staff who are teachers, primary teachers, for example, teaching through the medium of English at the moment, who are able to speak Welsh, can go and train to be specialist secondary teachers through the medium of Welsh, and that is funded and supported for schools to be able to develop those staff. We've got a number of staff through the Open University programme, so sort of a graduate teacher programme where they train on the job. So our schools are engaged with those. I think some of our English medium schools, which are schools where your governors maybe aren't always taking some of those opportunities, and that's something the team are working really hard to engage them and to make sure they are taking advantage of those funded opportunities to develop a Gymraeg in their teaching staff.
Diolch.
Thank you very much, Claire, for that response.
Paul, I'm sure, you know, your question is a very valid one, but maybe a topic selection form, you know, to bring that forward again in future would be useful as well. Diolch yn fawr. Mae gen I
I've got online Councillor Colette Owen, who wishes to speak. Thank you.
Diolch Cadeirydd a diolch John Paul, ond mae ddrwg
I'm sorry, I shall have to speak in English.
to know how are you providing support for those children who come into our schools with another language other than English or Welsh? And does that in any way hinder those schools' progress on the continuum? Or I do recognise that many of those children could add such richness to those schools, but also become very talented in learning yet a second stroke third language. I just wondered if that has been factored into the arrangements so far.
Diolch, Colette.
Thank you, Colette.
The use of the English as an additional language service that we share with them, so that work is done. Whether those children are new to Welsh or new to English, that is an equal opportunity given within Conwy schools. On top of that, for any learner from any other language, really, for example, let's say we had a family from New York who came to live in Llangwm. Clearly, they had no English, and they were integrated into the language unit in Dolgarrog. We also had a young lady from Indian background who came to live in rural Conwy as well, and was integrated through the language unit in Dolgarrog, and went onwards into the Welsh medium education and followed that pathway. Even if they return to their school after their new Welsh medium school afterwards, there is a package around those learners to support them after that event as well, to ensure that they integrate into it following that work.
Diolch fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. And I've got Councillor Austin. I think you're the last one to speak. Thank you very much, Chair. And may I thank John Paul for the presentation and the report, which was exceedingly interesting, and I enjoyed the film as well. It took me back to my own school days when we were allowed to watch films, the only time I paid attention. I'd like to raise the point on teachers and how difficult it is. And I think the biggest problem is, in the old days, of my school days, a number of my peers would decide to go to do teacher training and become teachers. A number of them have now retired, but a great number of them left the profession early, very early in some cases, due to the working conditions. And if you compare what teachers receive to other professions, the media, for instance, it's a lot less. If you compare the working conditions they must face, they're a lot harder and poorer. I do not agree that there are not enough people who would be able to be teachers through the medium of Welsh. The problem is to attract young people to become teachers in the first place. I've got a daughter-in-law who is a secondary school teacher. I've got a niece who's a secondary school teacher, and my niece, she's a very cunning girl. When she went to university, she did a degree in mathematics with the intention of doing mathematics and then accountancy and joining with her company, father's company. But very suddenly, Welsh Government came in and offered a bursary to mathematics students to go on to become teachers. And she decided to take advantage of that. And I think that is the way forward. We must try to persuade our funding people that teachers' jobs are very important jobs. It is one of the most important jobs there is, far more important than being a politician or to be a solicitor, far more important than being a TV star or a footballer or what have you. So that is the problem, and what we must do is we must try to make the job more attractive to young people. Thank you. Well, thank you, Councillor Austin, for sharing your thoughts there. And on that note, I'm sure that this is the opportunity we'll have to thank all our teachers and head teachers here in Conwy for all the work they do, whether that's in promoting the Welsh language or teaching pupils. So it is the last week of term, so I hope that they will all enjoy a well-deserved summer break. So I'm looking now for someone. Oh, someone wants to come back again. I was going to seek a proposal. Are you?
Oh, I'm happy to support the recommendation in the report.
Diolch.
But I want to add one specific amendment. So I'll take advice on this, whether it has to be, but I think it can be incorporated in the recommendation. And that is, because I think it's important the term we use at the moment is the urgency of now. So rather than do another topic sheet for Jane, I'd rather move this now, that we have a specific costed action plan to tackle the shortage of teaching staff able to teach Welsh as a subject and teach through the medium of Welsh effectively. Because I think we need to do more, and I think only by having a specific and costed action plan can we make progress on these things. And so I think such an amendment is an enhancement of the recommendation in front of us.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much. We've had a proposal with an amendment. Is anyone prepared to second the proposal made by Councillor Paul? Councillor Joe has seconded that proposal. Before we take that to the vote, I've got Dr. Lowry who wishes to come in. Thank you.
To be wary of that kind of recommendation, Councillor Paul, I think at the moment we're struggling to run our school estate as it is without, generating further staff with resources we don't have. I'm not sure whether that is within our gift to set out a costed action plan, and it probably is a discussion that we need to have on a national level in terms of how are we funding Welsh medium provision. So I don't shy away of a scrutiny report, and we're more than happy to accommodate, but I'm not sure that piece of work is within our gift to complete.
Diolch, Dr. Lowry.
Thank you, Dr. Lowry. I shall put the question to you, John. How many years are remaining in this Welsh Education Strategic Plan? This plan is a 10-year plan which comes to an end in 2032. But at the end of this year, we will have to put together a new strategic plan. So consideration must be given as to how that will look into the new Act. I understand what you're saying, Dr. Lowry. It is possible to make it one of the targets in the Welsh Education Strategic Plan that you provide some kind of a costing for what you plan to do. It would support this because we cannot fund the release of staff entirely for Welsh training. It's not quite enough, and we've got to use our own funding pots to support that. So it would be a valuable exercise to undertake.
Paul, Dr. Lowry is more or less saying, that we can't make it happen now, but would you be willing for us to recommend that it goes into the WESP for the run of this report? Sorry, Dr. Lowry.
Sorry, hefyd,
Also,
just to add as well, whilst we absolutely want to promote Welsh medium education and ensure that we've got a skilled workforce to undertake the roles that we're talking about, there are other areas as well within education that absolutely need resourcing and funding. And I just think we need to be really careful about ring fencing or committing to one area when we know that there are so many pressures. So I think if we can have agreement, as you're saying, Cynghorydd Gwennol, to build it into our next strategic plan and commit to working on it, but we probably need a wider discussion with you as elected members and Cabinet as to the sufficiency of funding we have generally.
Yeah. Felly, Cynghorydd Paul.
So, Councillor Paul.
Chair, I think we have to spend money now. And I know I'm not popular often for saying this, and we need specific advice from the professionals of how we make a difference. If we continue to put things off through the processes we have, and we're discussing a report next item on the agenda, it seems to me what that causes is some deep frustration, because the action that we need is not in the here and now. And it seems to me all I'm asking for is that costed plan. It will then be, we will then be able to, and I don't like doing this, but we will be able to compete against other demands. And as across the council, support for Welsh language teaching is highly supported, then I think that costed action plan will give a particular opportunity to be supported. So what I'm saying is, let's do the work. I'm not saying don't involve Welsh Government, but then we'll be in a strong position to say, we may not agree to do all the action plan, but we'll have some key parts of that action plan that we can take forward.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. Since you are talking now about funding and so on, I must now, before I bring in Callum, I must bring Amanda Hughes into the discussion to address the funding that would accompany this. Thank you, Amanda.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously just reflecting on what Councillor Paul's asked is, I guess there's a couple of points in one sense that I would observe, in the sense of, John Paul already has outlined a range of activity that we're currently doing to support the Welsh education language plan and strategy, etc. And I guess, there's an exercise you can do to cost what we currently do, what resources we currently put in to support the work as John Paul has already outlined. I think where Councillor Paul actually is going is more, should we put more resource in, and actually, if we should put more resource in, what is that additional resource that we should put in? And I guess to some extent that depends on how much as an authority, and it goes to Lowry's point, where that sits in the priorities of where with limited resources do we want to direct those resources to our highest priorities, and ultimately, it's the only thing that the committee, the Scrutiny Committee, can do is I guess make a recommendation that if there's a belief that there should be, or a desire to put more resources in this area, then that would need a business case that would go through to the to our budget processes in that way. But I don't think, by costing an action plan doesn't therefore get the results. The resource has got to go through the appropriate processes to do that. I guess I'd say I'm not clear perhaps when Paul wants, I suspect the answer, but as I say, when Councillor Paul is asking for a costed plan, I take it he's referring to a desire for additional resource. He's not referring to the costing of the resource we currently put into.
Right.
Right then.
With Amanda's advice that it is a business case that comes forward for this year's budget working groups in order to accommodate the process, if you like. But I don't think there's any doubt in people's mind what we're saying is, if we're going to make progress in the areas that John Paul has laid out for us and more speedy progress, certainly in my patch where I live, we need some additional resources to support Welsh language teaching, and we need to be upfront about that. We need that costed, and we then need to challenge both Welsh Government and our council taxpayers about putting that money in.
There we are. So, before I come back to your proposal, I just want, out of courtesy, to bring in Callum from the Youth Council, and thank you for waiting.
I just want to make a quick point and ask a question to John Paul, if I'm able. First point is, I want to echo Dr. Lowry's advice and suggestion about this is a national conversation. I'm a year away from doing a degree. If I choose to do a physics degree next year and I become a teacher, I'll get £31,000. If I do it in Wales, I'll only get 20, and then the recent government's just increased that. So I think there needs to be a national conversation around actually how do we keep recruitment and retention with that. And the one question I had was in the written dialogue that John Paul gave to us, you mentioned how Welsh medium primary pupils didn't always go on to Welsh medium secondaries. That seems quite concerning. What are the reasons for that? And is that a Conway thing? Is that a national thing? And what mitigations and revisions are you putting in place to make sure that doesn't happen?
Diolch, Callum.
Thank you, Callum, for your question. Thank you.
It's a national thing. It is going on nationally, but we have identified pockets within Conwy where it seems to be happening more than others. So we're going to address that. We do have a programme we're going to put in place to support that, and we are going to use RHAG, which is Welsh Medium Agency, to support Welsh Medium parents, of parents in Welsh Medium education, to help them help parents understand the importance of Welsh medium education. But just to come back to Councillor Paul's proposal there, we'd need to do an exercise to identify the best places to resource further within all the outcomes in the West. By doing that, we'd be able to identify where it's best spent for the greatest impact across the board, really. So we'd need to do that first.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now then, I shall now proceed to the recommendation is that members note the content of the report and continue to support and promote the action plan. Would you like to add
to that still? Paul, Councillor Paul.
Well, I'm taking advice from officers.
Yes.
It has to be in a business case.
Fine.
So I can argue with other people, we need to put some more money into this. So we do need the business case.
Fine. As John Paul has just said, you know, the WESP is going to be reviewed, and we're asking kindly, can we have some plan there about how things are going to be funded, but you know, that's something we'll have to bring up in future, I think. So felly heno, if you don't propose, do you want to propose that we note this report, Paul, or do you want me to ask somebody else?
Well, are we going to have a vote on the specific amendment or my recommendation with the amendment in it?
Okay. Can I just ask, what you're asking, is it feasible? Or is it a question for Frosk?
Our preference as officers would be that we undertake that initial mapping exercise.
Right. So can we just amend this by adding the word mapping out? So can you repeat that, Laurie?
John can do that far eloquently than I can.
Against all the outcomes we have for the West, we'll map how we need to prioritise certain elements of it. If we do that first and see what would support those elements, the key ones we're doing is moving T2 schools along the continuum and our immersion provision. Those are the main areas, as well as the teaching of the Welsh for our staff.
There we are. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'd say yes. I mean, I've enjoyed the conversation. I thought we brought this item forward in order to move quickly tonight, but obviously not going to happen. I very much welcome what's been said. I endorse what's been said by Paul. I endorse what's been said by Laurie. I have to say, in fact, to read a report with 3 risk implications within it and no mitigation against them did concern me. And I do feel, in fact, that even though we don't get the figures right, and I don't mean that wrongly, but if we don't get the figures right or everything in it, we should have something that we should be discussing in the future. And Callum made a very good point in relation to the costings of salaries in and out of the country. That in itself is a mitigation if we raise it, just as a point within something else. So overall, I support what's been said. And I like the amendment that's been suggested by John. Thank you, Chair.
Right, felly...
So, Councillor Paul? So Councillor Paul is now prepared to make the proposal with the addition that elements of the West need to be mapped. Is that okay? Thank you. And can we do that through the new West? No, nothing shall happen in the next few days, no. So thank you. May I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Joe? Seconding, thank you. And now, do we vote by show of hands or through the electronic system, please? So on your screens, if you cast your votes whether or not to accept the recommendations. So green if you agree, red if you don't, and yellow for abstentions.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Mae hynny'n...
That has been carried unanimously, and I make no apologies for providing plenty of time to discuss the WESP in this meeting as its merits. So we shall move on now to item number 9. We shall close the votes and clear the screen. So item number 9, to consider a report by the Strategic Director of Finance and Resources on the following matter. And this is the school funding review, which is to be found on pages 105 to 205. The Cabinet members for funding and strategic planning, Finance and Strategic Planning Councillors Chris Cater shall introduce the report. And it's possible that Councillor Aaron may want to contribute as well, and Amanda Hughes, the Director of Finance and Resources, we've already heard from her, and Dr Laurie Brown, the Head of Education Services, shall present the report. Councillor Crit, thank you for waiting.
Diolch yn fawr Cadeirydd, noswaith da, pawb. So this report in front of scrutiny this evening follows on from an independent, data-led review of school funding arrangements undertaken by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, that's CIPFA, which I refer to as CIPFA. This was a substantial piece of work and included engagement with officers, head teachers, business support staff, governors and representatives. The appendices to the report include the full CIPFA school funding review, the combined CIPFA and head teachers proposal merged work streams, and the ESTIN thematic review, local authority support for schools to manage their budgets. Before I hand over to Amanda Hughes, our Finance Strategic Director, and Dr Laurie Brown, our Head of Education, I want to reassure members, elected members, that a comprehensive 12-month programme of work has already started, Chair. We all recognise that the school funding formula methodology, which is very historic, needs to be simpler, fairer and more transparent. If the overall individual school budget, and I'll refer to that as ISB, is identified to be insufficient and redistribution of the existing budget does not address the pressures faced by our schools, then this would have to be a separate matter considered through our 27-28 budget setting processes. The findings of the SIPRA review and the associated action plan are directly related to the Council's medium-term financial plan. Chair, there are obviously going to be schools that benefit from ISB changes and those that don't, those that lose out. So traditional support may have to form part of the deliberations. At this point, I really want to commend our schools, for strengthening their financial management procedures and our officer teams for giving the necessary support and required system training. Monitoring arrangements need to include earlier identification of schools at risk of deficit and more consistent oversight of balances, bridging loans and also recovery plans. So coordination across finance, HR, ALN and school improvement services can only strengthen our decision making. SIPRA uses the term invest to save, so the expectation is that this major programme will deliver service improvements and reduce future costs and generate ongoing savings. So I'm happy to hand over to officers unless Aaron wants to come in and add anything to what I've said. Thank you, Chair.
No.
Diolch. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Chris. Just very briefly, all of us are very familiar with the fact that schools continue to face substantial financial pressures due to increasing costs and increasing demand, of course, and I believe that it's important that we respond proactively to these challenges. I do welcome the work that has been done so far, and I welcome also the review that is ongoing of the funding formula for schools, and the main reason for that, of course, is to ensure that the funding allocated to schools is shared as fairly as possible. That is all I wish to add. Thank you. Thank you to you both. Who's going to be taking this first?
Amanda.
Amanda.
Please, you need to push to speak. There we are.
Yeah, sorry, my apology. I clicked it on and then clicked it off.
It's okay.
Yes. Yeah, this report, obviously, as Councillor Crystal has already identified, draws together, well, it actually draws together a number of strands of work that we've been doing. The SIPRA review, but alongside that as well, there was an ESTIN thematic review looking at local authority support for schools, and also from the budget working group that we had last year with the schools last November, there was also work that was coming out of that. So in that context, the action plan attached draws really all of those strands together, which were overlapping in many ways, to set out a detailed action plan work around the school's formula, and other things. So as has been discussed a number of times, we brought SIPRA in to do a data-led look at the way we allocated funding to schools, and whilst the overall conclusion is that actually we invest comparably well in our schools compared to other authorities, there's no doubt the pressure is ramping up and existing across the sector across Wales. But in particular, the SIPRA review has highlighted the need for us to review our funding formula, because it has, I guess, moved from an original formula with iterative changes over the years, and I guess there's a feeling now that the formula perhaps doesn't work as well as it could, and therefore that's the primary focus in terms of the initial piece of work to look at that. I think it's important to stress, and perhaps the press did just refer to it as well. At the end of the day, the redistribution through the formula of the current money that we put into the school budget obviously doesn't change the overall quantum that we put in. It would merely be distributed in a different way, and inevitably then, whilst the hope is obviously that would result in a fairer and more transparent way of allocating funding, no doubt there would be winners and losers in that process, and also I think it doesn't take away from the fact that we need to consider, I guess, whether the total amount we put into schools in the current environment and the pressures that exist is in and of itself enough, and that's a sort of a separate debate to be had. But hopefully the work in reviewing the formula will help tease out, I guess, that wider perspective on whether the overall funding that we provide to schools is sufficient. So you'll see from the action plan that we've developed a comprehensive plan combining all the various recommendations, and office groups are already up and running to progress the work, and obviously we will be liaising appropriately through the school budget forum and with other interesting parties as we go along, and the work obviously will be very closely work between education and finance colleagues to ensure that we're working in the most strategic way for our schools. So as such, that's all I particularly wanted to say. Obviously, Laurie may well want to comment and or any questions that you have.
Diolch.
Thank you, Amanda. Did anyone else wish to? No, just to thank you, Amanda, but I want to thank also the stakeholders who have been part of the review, head teachers from our schools here in Conwy, and also members of the School Budget Forum. So I just wish to thank them for their contributions to the report. Certainly, thank you. So,
formula. Gawn ni gadw rwan.
So, can we focus our discussions on the report before us this evening, please, without deviating to discuss any particular schools and so on? We are looking purely at this report and nothing else. Thank you. So if we may begin with, who have we got? I'll start with Jack Smith-Keegan, please.
Jack, thank you. Diolch.
Diolch Gadeirydd, a diolch am yr adroddiad.
And thank you for the report.
The report has quite a lot of specific recommendations, and I can see from the workstream updates that there's a lot of work ongoing to address those recommendations, amongst other things. There aren't any dates in the workstream updates, so it's difficult to tell how things are progressing against the timelines in the recommendations. So for each of the recommendations on page 121 in the SIPFA report, I'd appreciate it if we could have an update just setting out how the work is progressing and what's a likely actual end date for that compared to the dates proposed by SIPFA. Diolch.
Right, who's going to answer this question? Dr. Lowry?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we will be populating that. I think the first task in hand, which is something that we've already been working on, is the review of the funding formula. So we've already begun that piece of work. We've commissioned some external support, and are really clear in the travel of that piece of work. So the hope with that priority area is that we will have completed the background work now towards the beginning of the autumn term, and then we will be bringing a revised formula through for discussion at the school budget forum, and of course we have members as part of that, because we want to get that in place by the new budget cycle from April the 1st onwards. So that's where we're prioritising our efforts and our work. We're prioritising consulting with head teachers. So yeah, we haven't populated the remainder because I think that work's going to be ongoing, but this is absolute our priority for completion by April the 1st. I don't know whether Amanda or David have any other comments on the related aspects of the plan.
Do have Claire with her hand up.
Yeah, I guess just to sort of reassure that some of the other actions, for example, ALM funding, small school protections, all of those are being considered as part of that review of the funding formula because all of them form part of the current funding formula. So lots of those individual lines, if you like, in that set of recommendations are being looked at holistically as one because they are all part and parcel of the same piece of work. So I just think that's worth pointing out as well. Diolch.
I shall come back to you, Jack. Did you have a supplementary question? Yes, thank you.
I know this is getting into the detail, so it may well be something that isn't possible to provide on the spot. But presumably this plan, which is, you've obviously got a detailed plan, I assume that has timelines in it somewhere. Will we get a more detailed view in this committee at some point of when we're likely to deliver against each of those recommendations?
Is it possible to answer that question?
Amanda will want to come in because I think we do need to consider as well which committee this needs to be discussed at, because lots of the work streams within the action plan are very finance driven and finance related. So I think that there also needs to be a consideration of where we report the progress on this too. Is that for finance and resources, or does that remain in education and skills? Maybe that's a consideration for another day, but we will be bringing it to the most appropriate committee, Jack, with some clear timescales and an update as well.
Yeah, deal.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr.
Yes, thank you very much, Jack, for that, and keep your eyes peeled as to which committee shall be discussing that, please. So next to speak, we've got Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is very useful and very helpful. My own disappointment, though, is it really hasn't told me much new, because many of the things that SIPFA reported on, I think we all knew were issues and problems. I mean, yes, we have a 1996 funding formula that has had some modest amendments, but hasn't been reviewed for 30 years. Now, that doesn't take SIPFA to tell us that. You know, the reality is a lot of the data that is available and has been available since I was elected in May 2022, plus data, surplus places, all of that. But we just have not taken the action to take difficult decisions. We've taken the difficult decision to increase council tax by substantial amounts, and we have invested some of that money in schools. And I'm pleased that when you look at the graphs and the information in this report, Conway's schools funding is very comparable to many schools in Wales, and that is a positive. The issue, rather like Jack, is the timeline of action. That is the key thing, and of course was what we were discussing in the last item on the agenda. If we don't have a timeline of action, some of us now, 4 years in, are not quite as trustworthy as we may be when we started, in terms of being faced with the difficult decisions we need to take. And we have a substantial difficult decision to take this budget year, especially it's an election year. I suspect it will be more difficult to get further high council tax increases. I may be wrong, but I suspect it will be. Also, in this year, we really should be taking some of these difficult decisions and not leaving it to a new group of councillors from May next year. You know, we should grasp the nettle and take those difficult decisions, and if necessary, take the flak before May 2027. And on that basis, there are some key things sort of not in this report. As you know, one thing I've been banging on the whole time I've been elected is the attainment gap based on deprivation. Now, my understanding in Wales, that's difficult anyway, because I don't think we've had any reports on that since 2015. But in 2015 in Conway, that attainment gap was 17% between children on free school meals and others. And in a sense, that's a key issue that we may have to take some difficult decisions about, not just only in terms of the funding formula, but what action are we going to take to support those children? And we're all conscious of those children. The other thing, which is very profound, which is, of course, they're voting on tonight, probably as we're speaking, in the Senedd, is funding coming to us either for ALN or for Flying Start. And both those things are very crucial to us. So presumably we will have to take some difficult decisions on ALN and Flying Start again within this municipal year, because that information will come to us from Welsh Government on our allocation of ALN monies, our allocation of Flying Start monies. So we will need to have the information to decide that in the democratic process. I mean, I think it's a difficult decision for the Senedd. Personally, I think there has to be some compromise, because Flying Start will help us a great deal with ALN.
We have no influence, have we, here? So
no, but I think what I'm saying is,
yes,
the thing I'm saying is, Jack's point was a very important point.
Yes.
We do need a timeline of some action, and I'm respectful to Lowry to say, and Amanda to say, yes, we will get reports coming through FROSC and Education and Skills, but are they guaranteed, and are we going to be able to make those difficult decisions, you know, before the May 2027 elections? Because it's vital, I think, we take that action.
Your question is, are we going to make any decisions before May 2027? Was that your question?
We've already been told we will make a decision on the funding formula, because that will be for next year's budget. But what concerns me on some of these other areas, will we be taking decisions in this municipal year?
Okay, so we might get home by 8 o'clock to see.
Is there an answer to that?
Well, I'm going to allow now either Claire or Laurie to try and respond. Thank you.
So going back to the review of the funding formula, Councillor Paul, as I said earlier, that piece of work will hopefully come to an end at the beginning of the autumn term. Now, David's here and he will know the regulations, but a change to the funding formula doesn't require democratic approval. I'm right in saying that, aren't I, David? If I'm not, apologies, but I'm pretty certain that doesn't require democratic approval. However, if we need further resource within that pot to resource what the new funding formula looks like, then of course that will require democratic approval. So there are two aspects to this. We are keeping up with the pace of this piece of work. We're confident that that review will take place so that we have a clear set of recommendations to build into a new funding formula to be implemented by the 1st of April. If what comes from that is that there is further resource needed in the ISB, I am not predicting that or not. But if that's what transpires, then that will require democratic approval before that April the 1st. So if that gives you a sense of the timeline.
You and Larry, you and I know that if we have a new funding formula, some schools will lose out. Some schools might lose out substantially.
Which is what Councillor Carr
said. But
Chris Cater said.
Yeah, but what we do need to make decisions on, and I think we will have to make the difficult decisions, is that some of those schools will need, I would say, transitional funding to get them through. Now, what I'm concerned is that those decisions and that information comes to us in a timely way, and particularly I'm thinking for the staff in those schools, those issues, for those governing bodies and head teachers, they need to know what that transitional funding will be and how that will work, because yes, I'm sure as a result some staff will have to go, but let's make the burden, if you like, a transitional one, because if it's not a transitional one, it could be very painful and chaotic.
Okay. Paul, I'm now going to ask my vice chair to, although there's a queue of people wanting to speak, I think I'm missing something. Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. This to me is a very important report. And given the history of the education funding, it needs to be considered. I'd like to see this be tracked, progressed at this committee periodically, might be every 3 or 4 months, but I think we do need to do it. I would have welcomed actually a discussion on the CIFA report and the content and the Essen report as well. But that's not going to happen because we won't have the time tonight to do that. I found the recommendations actually weak. That this committee should note the content, and I don't think note is sufficient enough, really. I think it's so important, in fact, it should have been a much stronger recommendation. But there it goes. But I would ask, Chair, that in fact that we should progress this at other meetings as they progress and should go on the work forward program.
So you're proposing that we get a progress report every 3 months to scrutiny?
I think so, yes.
That you're not happy just to note the report?
I'm not happy. I'm happy to accept it. However, I think that it's important enough that we should be kept abreast of it on a regular basis.
Yeah, Dr. Lowry.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Jeff. This will be tracked by the School Budget Forum. That's the forum which has representation from our head teachers from various sectors and also elected members. That's the forum that will track the progress of this piece of work. The minutes of that forum are included in the Education and Skills Scrutiny Committee agenda and are read out at the beginning of each meeting. So I strongly encourage us to continue with that governance process that we have in place, because that's the forum that is keeping track of this piece of work.
Okay, and on that note, I am going to bring Councillor Anne McCaffrey in.
Thanks, Chair. I welcome this report. I was delighted when Amanda agreed and Lowry agreed to invite SIPFA in. I was one of the 3 governors who were interviewed both by SIPFA and Eston. They were easy to talk to and they were good listeners. And I think the recommendations from both reports are not to be taken lightly. And I think there's a danger that I'm hearing that we may well miss out on some key sort of work really. So, you know, I really urge us to ensure that we're taking a really strategic approach to the action planning on this, because the recommendations go, in my view, far beyond the much needed funding formula review. That is an important consideration, but it's not just about that. And Councillor Chris, I agree with him. He said we need to take this seriously, and I think we do. So for me, I've got a couple of questions about governance and work streams, and I'll try and put them into two tranches for ease. I, like other members here tonight, I'm surprised that Scrutiny has such limited involvement, and Education Scrutiny no involvement, I think, in monitoring, evaluating, overseeing progress. So I'm really concerned about, we don't know how this will be done. It's been done at arm's length. And I don't think we should be treating this arm's length, to be honest with you. So how will this be done? I would have liked this report to be really clear about how, as members of this committee, can be actually assured that we're on progress and we're tackling with albeit in a prioritised way. Second of the sort of first tranche of questions is, therefore, I'd really like to know what the membership of this committee, this working group is, because whilst we've had a broad definition, I'd actually like to see, for the members of this committee, it could just be circulated by email, what the membership is, so that we can be assured that we think we've got the right mix as well. And actually, I'd like a copy of the terms of reference for the working group. I think not only do us as members see it, I think governors need to see it, and I'm the Governors Association representative on the budget forum, and also head teachers need to see it. And I'm not sure if yet we've actually announced this across the school estate, because I don't think my governors were aware of any of this until I briefed them a few weeks ago. So that's my sort of second part. And then the third bit is, we're obviously here talking about a funding review, and it implies what the sort of funding challenge is, but I just wonder, for the context of us here tonight, and obviously at this point in time, as well as members of the public here, what's the size of the recognised budget deficit for our schools, and what percentage of our schools have loans as well as deficits? So those are first sort of roll up of three questions, and then I'll come back with a couple of others. Thanks, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. I believe it's Amanda Hughes who shall be responding to your questions. Amanda.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so just in sort of start with the last one. I think at the end of the day, I think we need to be careful not to preempt the outcome of the work. Essentially, I appreciate that both myself and Lowry have referenced that maybe you know, the size of the cake, for want of a better phrase, the money that we put into the school budget, you know, it feels, I guess, given the pressure, given the pressure we know in schools, given the increasing demands that schools have, given the estate that we currently have, given the amount of loans that we currently have, that it feels inherently that maybe we need to consider whether, in fact, actually that cake is big enough. But we haven't yet completed and fully undertaken that work, and therefore I don't think we should be judging at the moment. So I'm certainly not prepared to put a figure of what I believe a shortfall is, because I genuinely don't have one. What we need to do is we need to assess essentially that if we are comparable, or you know, if we compare favourably with the rest of Wales in terms of the money that we put into our schools, then the first question is, are we distributing that in the right way? Can we distribute it in a fair and more transparent way that leaves less of our schools struggling? And that's the first question we need to answer before we then start saying, and actually through that review, is there any indication that actually we might need to increase the size of the cake? And of course, there's a second point, which is a section within the report about the school estate, because of course, if we maintain our existing school estate, then obviously that might require funding at a certain level. There are obviously options to not maintain our current funding estate. And obviously, relevant decisions around that have recently been taken in respect of some schools. We have this overall issue of declining pupil numbers, and certainly relative to the rest of Wales, which impacts the bar funding formula, etc. So, I think we need to go through that process of doing that detailed work before we start preempting decisions. And in the same vein, when Councillor Paul was talking about transitional arrangements and what are they going to be, well, again, we don't know yet whether there would need to be transitional arrangements. What we do know is that our current way of distributing funding to our schools doesn't allow for specific allocation to schools in specific circumstances, and that's also something we need to consider as part of our rules around how we build in the potential for exceptional circumstances to support individual schools when circumstances might dictate that we need to. I guess I would really just ask that we just allow this work that Loïc indicated that we're going to be doing through to the autumn to inform a recommendation around a funding formula, new funding formula. I'd welcome being allowed to continue that work and to consider what the outcome of that is before we start preempting. I'm more than happy, Loïc and I am sure are more than happy to consider, to attach timelines, and we can consider monitoring of the action plan on a regular basis. I would suggest, I think 3 months, I personally would view that seems too onerous, but I'm more than happy that we commit to reviewing it on a 6 monthly basis, and we will obviously have to consider which is the appropriate committee for us to do that. We absolutely, as officers, are taking this report seriously. That was the whole point of getting SIPRA in to help us. And whilst I take Councillor Paul's point at the beginning that arguably it doesn't tell us something we don't know, but what it does do is give us that external validation and gives us a focus and actions to move forward with, and we're committed to doing that. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Councillor, back to you with the first part of your question. If you're happy, I'll just go now to.
I think there are 2 questions that have been answered so far, and what I would, and if you're wanting to delay that and come back to me, that's fine.
Okay.
But I just reply to Amanda that, just to be really clear, nobody, and certainly not me, and I don't think any member of this committee, is preempting the outcome of whatever work we'll do. I think we all actually know the figures that I questioned, and obviously I don't particularly know the number of loans that we have, but I thought it was a reasonable question, both for all members here who are not necessarily democratic members, as well as the member of the public. But I understand perhaps Amanda's reticence, if I could call it that, in terms of being specific about that. Am I able to go on to my other questions, Chair, or not? Because obviously
can we? Yes. Can you just can we come back to you, and then you can ask those 2 questions again, please, because they were quite different to what Amanda answered. Unless Amanda wants to answer now. Amanda?
Yeah, just really quickly, apologies, Councillor Anne, I wasn't being evasive, meaningfully evasive in terms of the answer. I just didn't know the detail off the top of my head. I have, however, had it now, and there are 13 schools with loans to the value of 1.6 million. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. So in terms of the first 2 questions, Chair, am I going to have an answer from somebody, or?
Can you just repeat them briefly then, please, Anne, because they were quite different.
Yeah, the first one, in fairness, I think probably Amanda's now just added in laterally an answer, and that is, I was surprised that there was limited scrutiny involvement, and particularly no involvement from education scrutiny in monitoring, evaluating. But I think now we've heard that officers are committing to do this on a quarterly basis, so that is good. And as long as Jack's point about let's actually have some meaningfulness, some smart action planning, so that we know what we're measuring and evaluating, would be helpful. The second question to be answered was, I'm not sure what the membership of this working group is. I'm not sure the terms of reference are. And I'm really requesting that we circulate that to members of this committee, to governors and to head teachers. I think openness and transparency and commitment to this work are absolutely crucial.
Right, I think we're going to get the answer to that from Claire.
Yeah, I think essentially the working group that's referred to here in row 1 is the working group, an officer working group around input into the review of the funding formula, so that we've got input from ALN, education improvement, curriculum, finance, that we're bringing all of that together. It's not just a standalone piece of work from finance. We've also included a number of head teachers in that review thus far, and they will be part of that sort of broad working group moving forward. So it's not a formal task and finish group as defined, you know, within your work streams. This is just about ensuring that all the relevant information is being provided into that review, so that we are considering statutory requirements, statutory class size limits, statutory curriculum delivery limits, etc. So all of that information is being fed into the review, so that any proposed model that is brought forward has considered all aspects, and it isn't just a financial planning exercise, but that it is something that allows schools to be able to deliver what they are required statutorily to deliver, and that the funding model is allowing for that to happen. So that is what that working group that is alluded to in that first row is about. So it's not a formal task and finish group as a subgroup of any committee. That is simply a group of officers who are inputting from a range of areas to ensure that we are including all relevant information in the review and any forward modelling. So there are head teachers, as I said, involved in that from across the primary sector and the secondary sector, including foundation schools, including small rural schools, including Welsh medium schools, including large coastal schools. So we've got that cross-reference and cross-section of schools involved to feed into the needs and kind of the lived experience really of heads in regards to delivering within the funding formula model that exists now.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Anne.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, still not sure who they are, and got assurance that, you know, apart from what's been said, I don't doubt it. But I think, for example, on the SIPFA, I think it was the SIPFA report and review group, I don't think there was a school business manager from the primary sector. And I suppose that's resonating in my mind. There were school business managers from the secondary sector, but not from the primary sector. And obviously we've got far more primary schools with limited capacity than we've actually got large secondary schools with more capacity. So that really was the motivation for that particular question. But I'll leave it there. But I think head teachers and governors need to understand what's been done, because they're key stakeholders in this. The last final couple of questions are, so our Sustainable Communities for Learning was found by SIPFA to be too long and, to quote their words, lacking in ambition and data, I think. So how will this be addressed? Because it's not within the action plan. And also, I'm not sure if it fits somewhere within your action plan, but I don't see anything about enhanced financial reporting, strategic support to schools around staffing and managing deficits and so on, and that sort of digital office aligned to the council digital system, so that schools can be mature and access the reports they need to when they need to access them. So couple of questions there around. I'm not sure I see much of that within the action plan, but it might be given somewhere.
Diolch, thank you, Councillor Anne. And just to correct, I think, Amanda, you said that we were going to be looking at this every 6 months rather than quarterly, didn't you? Yes?
Yes, that would be
there we
my
are.
preference.
Okay, does somebody want to respond, or can somebody respond to Dr. Lowry?
Yeah, I'll respond to the first question. This isn't the only external report, Councillor Anne, that we have had a recommendation around the pace of the implementation and delivery of the Sustainable Communities for Learning colleagues as part of the Gateway review as well, which was officer-led and run by Welsh Government, all also felt quite strongly about the pace of that work. So we have the 9-year rolling programme, which is phased into 3 sections. And of course, you'll be aware that you've agreed to us looking at those geographical areas over that 9-year time span. Yes, I think it is slow. I think we do need to increase the pace of that. And, you know, the main issue for us is capacity. You'll know that we're a small team within that site management portfolio of education. So we are looking and they're currently working on a restructure, Councillor Anne, and we're going to be looking to request additional resource to fund additional staff so that we can increase the pace of it. Because I think the longer we leave that plan running, the more it's going to cost us as a local authority. So that work is currently being undertaken.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
And obviously I completely understand that you're a small team, Lowry, with lots of competing challenges to sort of resource and address. So thanks for that. What about just the final point that I raised then, which is about the financial reporting strategic support that was mentioned both by Eston and indeed by SIPFA?
I think, Amanda and Claire are fighting for this one. We'll go to Amanda.
Thank you very much. I mean, I don't particularly have anything explicit to update in relation to that. You know, we are continuing again through a limited and small finance team to support schools. You know, with their financial position, and we continue to try and do that as we develop reporting, you know, improved reporting for all of our services. Then we will obviously seek to include schools in that process. So I think it's an ongoing, you know, iterative piece of work. Really, I've nothing explicit to update on it.
Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
So those particular recommendations are a bit hanging really and haven't really sort of landed anywhere is what I'm hearing. And I would just like to say, I think, you know, without some of that change in systems enhancement and timely information and more strategic planning and help for schools, I think a lot of what we're actually trying to achieve will be really hampered. So I just want to make that point, because there's no point in having Eston and SIPFA recommendations and ruling them out. I understand we may well want to prioritise them into urgent and important and work backwards from there, but these seem to have fallen off the radar, which is disappointing. Thanks.
Diolch, Cynghorydd Anne.
Thank you, Councillor Anne.
That we are going to be reviewing this in 6 months' time. So can we add that to the forward work plan, do you think, Jane? In 6 months' time that we'll be reviewing the progress of?
Chair, I'm not happy with that.
You're not happy?
No, I'm not happy with 6 months because...
Well, Amanda has explained that they haven't got the capacity.
But it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Get additional capacity. We use capital receipts to employ 2 additional data officers. If you can't provide the information, you need to increase capacity to do it. And the point is, we are constantly delaying taking difficult decisions because we do not have the information in front of us. And I think this proposal to have it done on a quarterly basis is reasonable. If to do that, we do need some additional staff, then we need to act and get those additional staff.
Okay. Well, our work as a scrutiny committee is to scrutinise the report. We can't make those kinds of decisions in this committee. So you may want something, but, you know, we can't insist on having it, can we? Does anybody want to respond to what Councillor Paul has just said? You know, okay, well, right, we'll move on, and I'm going to move on now to our youth representative, Callum, who's been waiting again, but you're not the last this time, Callum.
Diolch, Chair. It's really interesting, the report, but I must echo members' concerns that this is not repeating anything new, and this has been a massive concern for members for as long as I've been here, which is only 8 months. I'm relatively new to this, but this is repeating nothing new, and as the youth representative, I think I'd kick myself if I didn't say publicly and in front of members who decide what happens with the council. Do not be under any impression that there is any more to give in this system, because there isn't. That imaginary cushion that we think we have in the education system, you look at the stats, there isn't any more cushion now, and students can see that. You know, the idea of, we can safeguard things and we can, decrease budgets to the point where actually we can still have minimal impact, maximum impact without minimal awareness does not happen anymore. So I would like to just make that and raise that to members who decide what happens with budgets about that. The two things I want to ask is about the PTR, pupil-teacher ratio. So Conway do it really, really well. But there's a big statement here that says one of the lowest PTRs in Wales, and that indicates smaller class sizes and strong workforce retention. Whilst that will be true, and that's a really positive thing, I would like some more clarification on, actually, is the PTR lower because of the more rural aspect of Conway, and the idea of a lot more numbers of primary schools that are actually bringing that PTR down, and it would be lovely to see the figures on PTR specifically in secondary compared to primary schools to actually break down that data more. And then the second question that I want to raise is the idea of the LA IDPs. It mentions in the report that it went up 25-fold, and that's obviously a national thing that we're seeing in terms of ALN. However, Conway's spend on individual IDPs is 5,000. Nationally, it's 35,000. And in terms of neighbours, it's triple Conway's. So my question is, I'd like some clarification on, actually, in terms of money for money, is Conway spending more per pupil? So times all the numbers together and figure out what the actual reflection numbers are. And the second part to that question is, why are our numbers so high compared to our neighbouring local authorities and the national figure? Because whilst it is a national issue that we're seeing in terms of ALN and IDPs, Conway seems to be the common denominator here that has such a low denominator in terms of IDP figures, but for so many. So I'd like some clarification on that, please, Chair, and that's fine.
Thank you, Callum, and thank you for your specific questions as well. Claire?
I'll answer the one on PTR if that's okay, or try. I think the difficulty with PTR is you can't compare like with like. So in Conway, we've got sixth form in all of our secondary schools, for example, so that disproportionately affects the PTR because, of course, in post-16 education, the class sizes are smaller, and therefore that is disproportionately affecting what we've got. And, that's unusual. In terms of if you compare across Wales, or if you even compare across North Wales, so you've got some local authorities which maybe have a sixth form in 2 or 3 schools, plus maybe delivery through a sixth form college. You've got some in Wales that have no sixth form in school and just FE delivery. So it's you can't really compare like for like there. And of course, there are some schools where PTR feels low compared to some schools where you've got maybe 36, 38 in a class with one teacher. So when you look at it on the whole, it looks favourable compared to across Wales, but I will bang the drum that you're not able to actually compare like for like, because we're not able to simply look at the figures. If you stripped out post-16 entirely across Wales to get that figure, you'd probably get a more reasonable comparator. What I will say though is the PTR in Conway has increased or decreased depending on the way you look at it, i.e. there are more children to fewer teachers, and that has been a trend over time, and that proportion is greater than the change across Wales as well.
Yeah, Claire. Callum, maybe Councillor Chris Cater might have an answer to another part of your question.
No, My comment was going to be on the funding review group, really. I know that we are getting external support for that. In fact, I think we've already got it. Hugh's already started, Lowry, hasn't he, giving support for that. So I just wanted to do that. But also, regarding your point, we do have our pupil numbers are declining. There's no doubt about that. It's in all these reports. It's been flagged up. And whether we go down the route of reviewing tertiary education, I don't know. It is something that's been talked about. But at the moment, the argument may be, okay, we've got this amount of sixth form at our various schools. Is that the best way of providing the provision? I really don't think that's too big a topic, Chair, to go into this evening. So I think we should. That's for another day.
Yes, and not on the report either. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. The other thing I was going to mention is Cynhwyrydd Aaron's strategic school planning group, which you sit on, and Councillor Anne sits on. So that will be doing a lot of work, won't it? And I can't remember how frequently that's going to meet, but that was every 2 months, was it, Larry, you agreed last time? Or I'm looking at Aaron, how frequently that will be meeting. But
6 weeks to 2 months, no more than 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Aaron's made sure that that's got good democratic representation, because it's actually by political representation, the membership of that group. So we do have all the political groups in Conway represented on that group.
Okay.
Just a comment, thanks.
Callum?
Apologies, could I just come back in there? I would strongly argue this is a very applicable thing that is on the report, because this is a comparative analysis for PTR. And the interpretation says that indicating because of our low PTR, we have smaller class sizes and strong retention. Now, Claire's answer, which I was thinking about sixth form because such low class sizes, is a very fair comment. So my question back to that is, if that's the answer and sixth form is the reason as to broadly the reason as to why the PTRs are weary, and you might say actually it's not a good way to look at it, then why are they making the authors of the report, why are they making such bold comments to say about strong teacher retention and class sizes when actually it's not as clear cut as that? So I think that's very applicable. And I also, if the data is misleading, why make such a big interpretation of it?
I'll quickly respond and say the authors of the report are looking at data in and of itself. So the data is the data, and in terms of what is available to compare against, that is the data set. I think locally it's reasonable for us to say that there is information below that data. Sixth form is one of the factors. It's not the factor, but I'm just pointing out that that is one of the factors that can impact here. And as Councillor Chris says, we're not going to get into a big conversation about post-16, but that is a factor which impacts the PTR.
But thanks for raising that, Callum.
Could I get an answer on my ALN question, please?
You can.
Callum, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat it.
No, it's completely fine. So as part of the ALN, I was just looking at the figures, and it's went 25-fold in Conway, but that's a national thing that's happening with ALN, as we see. Now, the Conway figure for the IDP is 5,000. Nationally, it's 35,000, and neighbouring, it's 15, so still triple our figure. So the question essentially is, why are we seeing such a low figure? And I think the answer is going to be because we have such broad, such high numbers in such short space of time. But we look like the common denominator here, and it's not a positive or negative interpretation. It just looks quite odd in terms of data. So I just wanted some clarification on why the figure looks so different from the deviation.
Yeah, thanks, Callum. I'm not sure whether you're referring to the spend per IDP or the number of IDPs.
So the spend is 5,200 for Conway, and the number of IDPs has went up massively. But the spend in our neighbouring authorities are triple that spend per IDP, and then nationally it's 7 times Conway's. Why is there such a big deviation? Is it because of the numbers, or is it because of a broader thing?
In terms of the numbers, we have seen a significant increase in the number of learners that we have a statutory duty to provide provision for. So we've seen an increase in that because more learners have been captured as part of the ALN legislation. So therefore, we know that we have more learners that we're responsible for, but we haven't had the resource from Welsh Government, and you'll all know that has been a bugbear with the newer legislation to support us in resourcing that provision. I think I'll have to get back to you on the figures that you're quoting there, because I'm not sure whether they're actually in the SIPFA report or are they from the Welsh Government circular. So I'll have a look at them and I'll get back to you on that.
Brilliant, thank you.
Fair enough, thank you. Diolch. Councillor Simon, thanks for your patience. Can we have your question, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. Couple of points on the recommendation of the SIPFA report. There's an item that mentions financial management, and it says provide training to head teachers and governors on budget control, including the Tech One system. Does that system apply to foundation schools? Because it's not been mentioned in my school, which is where I'm a governor, which is a foundation school. I've never heard of it, and it sounds like it might be quite useful. The other questions, a lot have been asked by Anne already. I did note in the school budget forum report that 18 posts total had been made redundant, other hours reductions, which I think was a question she asked. I would also note that the schools, somebody made a comment that the schools budget forum had a lot of democratic representatives on it. I note that only your good self and the two cabinet members appear to be members of the school budget forum, according to the minutes that we had earlier. And the other question really, look at this big page on page 121 in the SIPFA report, the summary of recommendations. There are 8 of the 14 items have 6-month timescales, which is quite urgent. I'm very concerned that the amount, there's 14 items on there, and how the schools, the budget staff, the small staff that Lowry was talking about, are actually going to be able to work on all these items, when I think equally important to sorting out the budget formula, sorting out the sustainable communities for learning, because unless we get the school estate right, we're only ever going to be trying to split this budget up between too many schools, in my opinion. And I think that's something Paul has made the comment about many times before in this committee. Thank you.
Can we have a short response to that, please, or whoever?
Can I just come in? There are 2 different groups. There's a school budget forum.
I'm on this.
There's a school budget forum which has got head teachers and officers, and myself and Councillor Aaron on it. And then there's the strategic school planning group, which has got political representation and is officers and councillors. So that's the difference.
Okay. Right. I think you asked a question specifically about a school where you're a governor. Can you please direct that question to outside of this meeting, maybe? Or do you want to clarify?
It is the financial management training. It will be rolled out, and that includes foundation schools. So you'll get information on that. And also, Councillor Croft, you're a member of the strategic school planning group, so you're very much a part of those discussions. Yeah.
Thank you. Diolch. Councillor Ann, is that a new hand?
Yes, it is. I just want to make some recommendations or an amendment.
Are you going to make a recommendation then?
I am indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's already been made, but I'd obviously like to recommend that we note the report. But secondly, we formalise that Scrutiny reviews progress of the enhanced action plan, time-framed action plan, every 3 months. I think I can't get away from it needs to be done every 3 months, given the priorities and times that have been allocated to it. And thirdly, that the action plan be revised to address directly the recommendations around financial management, which Simon's just mentioned, and that's about smart and timely strategic systems, reports, and support to schools. So three-part recommendation for me. Thanks very much.
I'll just need Amanda to confirm whether, will it be possible?
Well, I guess ultimately, Chair, if that's the committee's request, then we will seek to
Fine.
comply
Thank you.
with it.
So I'll need a seconder for that. Councillor Paul Nailio.
Councillor Paul has seconded.
Okay.
Therefore, with that recommendation, with the amendments by Councillor Anne, seconded by Councillor Paul, can we take it to the votes, please, if we are all happy with that recommendation?
I'll ask,
If you vote digitally, please.
dyna ni.
Has everyone had an opportunity to vote? I assume so. We shall bring the vote to a close. Thank you. And that's been carried unanimously. May I thank you all for your contributions this evening, and thank you especially to the officers. I know that you don't work only during the term time, but I hope you have an opportunity over the summer holidays to have a break while the schools are closed at least. So thank you to you all, and I hope you all enjoy a good summer holiday. And thank you to the translator, and here to Sally and to Jane. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening and a safe journey home. Thank you.